Good afternoon, everybody. My name's Amanda Downs and I'm Head of Commercial Leadership at Uspire. I'd like to wish you all a really warm welcome and thank you for taking the time to join us today in your lunch hour. We do really count ourselves lucky at Uspire that our consulting in our academy and our community projects connect us with people who we reckon are the finest leaders in the world. So welcome to this webinar, which is Exceptional Leadership Journeys. Today, my aim is to introduce you to 4 of the leaders that we know, all of whom are really exceptional leaders, and they're going to share some of their stories. I'm going to ask 3 questions. What's your greatest achievement as a leader? What are the biggest leadership lessons? And what would your advice be to leaders listening for the future? So who are these leaders? Well, here they are. I'm absolutely delighted to welcome our 4 guests today. So hello, Aduke.
Hello.
Hi, Aduke. Fantastic. Great to have you here. Hi, Steve Wood.
Hi.
Hello. YJO, who joins us from Canada.
Good afternoon, everybody.
A very cold Canada.
A very cold Canada, yes, Amanda.
And Bob Carnell. Welcome, Bob.
Hi, everybody. Welcome.
Hello. Hi, how are you doing? Okay, so let's get straight on with our first question. Your greatest achievement as a leader. I'm going to ask that question, first of all, to Aduke.
Thank you, Amanda. I'm really excited to be here. What a great meeting. So thank you very much for the opportunity. My greatest achievement in my career really would be to have successfully planned how the OMM 2020 vision would be realized for the London Metropolitan Police Service. So the ambition is to become the safest global city and to do that in the most cost-effective, cost-neutral way, but also to get the right people, the best people, into the police service, to use the best IT, the best infrastructure to support that transformation. So it was a big pot of money the government put together. We had, basically the transformation would go over a period of 10 years, but the challenge that I and my team had at that time was to design how the money would be spent, how the change would be landed, what we would do first, and what that means for the broader ambition, how we would get the right people, and just the really sort of strategic planning and being able to successfully do that and then hand the blueprint and the roadmap to the business to see 3 years down the line how that's been executed is quite inspiring.
Wow, and what were the results, Aduke?
I can't talk too much about it.
Oh no, I suppose
but,
not.
So in London at the moment, if you've got a crime to report, so some of the things that we can talk about is public-facing aspects of our work, which is if you've got crime to report in London for the very first time, in the history of the London Met Service, you can go online and actually you can log that crime online, and you can follow the journey of how the crime gets, passed on to a caseworker. You can actually see that transparent process.
Steve, that same question about your greatest achievement.
Thanks, Amanda. Hi, everyone. Steve Wood. I'm the Group Ops Director with Butcher's Pet Care, which is the largest UK wet dog food provider. And previous to that, I've had 27 years in UK food manufacturing. I'd always judge my best achievements not just by the scale of what I do, but I think it's hugely important that you sustain what you deliver. And in that area, in 2007, I joined a company called Aduke Foods, and they were in a real crisis phase. They were privately owned. The organisation had totally lost a lot of confidence of its customers through a succession of failures, really, on service and quality. And the business was in a real tailspin. Customer confidence was low. Employee confidence was at rock bottom. And we managed over a 5-year period, not 6 months, as is sometimes attempted, turn that business around and deliver a successful business, which was then subsequently sold as a private equity buyout. The key for that, for me, in the early stages, was to rebuild the confidence and trust, particularly of the customers, but actually probably first and foremost, the people that were running the business. So huge amount of focus on what was really important to the customers, get the basics absolutely right. Small steps initially, get the people that were doing the job to start to believe in themselves again, and gradually over a period of time, that built customer confidence back into what we were trying to do. And then we started to engage the customers in some of those solutions and start to build an improvement culture with our customers, really. And we had to take some tough decisions along the way in that. So there was some excess capacity moved and we moved from the business. Unfortunately, that was difficult, but had to be done. And gradually we shifted from a kind of foundational phase of control. We got the customers aligned, trusting, and then we moved to a phase of improvement and really started to engage with them about what the next steps, what the real transformation for them would be. Innovative products, innovative market. We built a growth platform off that and really took the business, almost doubled capacity, double turnover with them over that period. And then in 2012, we sold the business on a private equity buyout and delivered huge value. I think for everybody, really, customers,
absolutely,
investors, and employees.
I remember I was involved with you at that time, and the brand. I think the brand now, the sandwich brand, is now Urban Eat is now worth over £1 million. That was developed as part of that initiative. So congratulations, Steve.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's the biggest forecourt selling convenience food product in the UK these days.
Great achievement. Thank you.
Thank you.
YJ, lots of people in red here. Tell us about your achievement.
Yes, good morning, everybody. My name is YJ O, and I'm currently the Managing Director of Edwards Life Sciences in Canada. And so that is the picture of our office team that you see, all bright and happy and smiles. But the question that I was thinking about in the situation around, what would be the greatest leadership achievement for me actually predates my time at Edwards. But I go back to about 17 years ago, and it was the first time I took on a commercial leadership role for a sales organization. So if you can picture your first real role in a very significant managerial type, I had a team that was really a hodgepodge of people. They weren't thinking as a team. It was a team that no one really believed in, and truly a team that was failing. It wasn't achieving targets. They weren't really working well together. And so one of the things that also was a big part of the medical technology space, which is where I've been, for the last 20 years, is that it's a little bit like they want to see you go through the ranks, and that you had started with them and then you moved your way through. And what was unique to me was that I had come in without being in that particular therapeutic area. So there was a lot of skepticism from my team. And so how I look at this achievement is that I took a team of non-believers and we created a team that in the end had outstanding accomplishments in that we won Region of the Year. We had 3 winners directly from my region out of 4 regions in Canada win President's Club, which essentially denotes them as the highest achiever. And where I attribute that leadership part was, it was really important for me to make the team see their contributions, not only to their own achievement, but to the broader team. And I think the lesson for me that has really shaped me as a leader going forward is, how do you develop your team? How do you take key members of your team and help them see what they can achieve? And I think what has transpired is that the people from that first journey for me as a commercial leader was investing in their career, helping them see the perspective where they can go and change their paradigm for how they see and actually pursue their career. So really fortunate, if we fast forward, a lot of these people have now moved on to various roles in Europe and in the US. We have stayed lifelong friends, and we now continue to mentor each other in a way that I think wouldn't have happened unless we had that journey together and truly starting out believing in each other and working as a team versus just individual contributors.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Thank you, YJ. It's one of those situations where if you're leading a team in adversity and they come through it, many people that we speak to, and me included, still in touch with teams where you came through some dark times, some hard times, and delivered. And it really sounds like you had the vision to be able to mobilize those guys into really delivering. A great example. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. Okay, so over to you, Bob. The same question. Oh, look at that picture. Tell us about that.
Yeah, hi everybody. Glad to be here. I'm Bob Connell. I'm Managing Director of Kerry Foods in the UK and Ireland. And we're about a 1.3 billion euro business selling to all major supermarkets in the UK and Ireland. I suppose from my perspective, about 10 years ago, I went on a business trip to Mumbai, which transformed my life. I was unfortunately staying in the Taj in Mumbai, in southern Mumbai, and I was involved in the terror attacks which took place on the 26th of November.
Wow.
I was in a terrorist situation. I was trapped. I was shot at and witnessed some very unpleasant things in terms of that hostage situation. And as you can imagine, it was a pretty unpleasant experience and a sort of life-changing experience. I came back to the UK and I had a massive period of reflection, and I had some help, some counselling, and I had to look at myself. And throughout that process, I came to the conclusion that I was complacent. I had some decisions to make. Did I stay in my current job? Did I do something different? I thought I knew it all, and I thought, on reflection, I wasn't a particularly pleasant person, and I had a choice to make. I had to be a better person, a better leader, or do something different. And that was the start of my leadership journey. And over the last 10 years, I've increased my self-awareness, understood who I am, understand what my personal purpose is. And I've had the support of a couple of executive coaches along the way. And as a result of that, my career has moved forward. I've found internal peace. I know what I'm about. I'm working continuously on my leadership journey and my personal development, and this experience has transformed my life.
Wow. Wow. I'm truly humbled that you shared that with us. Thank you so much, Bob. And you know, these sorts of when these sorts of things happen to people, they can kind of go one way or the other. And congratulations on taking those sorts of steps to transform your leadership. So, wow, I'm going to take a deep breath after that one, Bob. Moving on, let's ask ourselves the next question. What is your biggest leadership lesson is our second question. And I'm going to ask that to Aduke. I think, Aduke, are you back?
I think the biggest lesson I've learned is that leadership is about people. And, you know, all the outcomes that you may want to achieve as a leader, you need people more than, you know, more than skill or more than, you know, sort of the capacity or whatever. It's more around how people feel about what they're doing. And if they want what they're doing to succeed, you as a leader will in turn succeed. So it's all about understanding that, you know, as a leader, you only succeed when the people around you succeed, the people that you lead succeed, where they can feel appreciated, you know, see themselves in the journey. And also if at the end of the journey, they can say, wow, you know, personally, this is what I learned. This is what I've taken away from that experience. I'm a big believer in ethical leadership. You know, my values generally, even in running the sister network, is all about giving everyone a chance, about listening to everyone, about helping people to find their voice, and, you know, how to use it, and encouraging people to listen as well. So I find, you know, leading in that way, leading what you believe, you know, being true to who you are, it's been the biggest lesson that I've learned.
Well, that's amazing. Thank you. And it's really, as you talk about this, the style of leadership you have, you lead from behind. You are a giving leader. I've had the pleasure of seeing you speak at some of your sister events, and the humility that you use does absolutely bring the best out of people. You know, and as you say, people are key. So leadership means nothing to lead, although we may one day be leading machines more so than people. But actually, do we really believe that? The people are absolutely key. Absolutely key. Thank you, Aduke. Steve, your biggest lesson?
Yeah, so I mean, I feel almost certainly I've learned my biggest lessons from my failures, actually, a lot more than my successes. And I think the biggest lesson that I've learned continually through that is that before you try and do anything, the most important thing to do is to try and win the hearts and minds of people before embarking on any change journeys. We're far too quick sometimes to jump to what we want to do and jump and leap into all sorts of tools and techniques without actually convincing and helping and develop the people to go on that journey with you.
Yeah.
And I've had 4 separate experiences of leading businesses through operational excellence programs. And the first time I did that, I did exactly that. I jumped straight in with all the tools and techniques, and the benefits lasted about 3 months, and then it fell in a heap.
Yeah.
The second time I did it, I thought, oh, well, we'll do this differently in Aduke. So I did spend a lot of time with the team and development and investment in those kind of skills and the why, personal as much as business. And we developed a really sustainable excellence journey in that business, which worked really well for us and sustained the discussion I talked about earlier. And the third time I did it I thought, okay, well, that worked really well. So I went to another business called Tulip Foods, and did it again. And what I didn't really factor that was a different cultural stage of the business. So in Aduke, we had a really young business, a real burning platform for change. In Tulip, there was a much more mature business and a much more, well, why do we need to do these things, Steve? And I perhaps underestimated that. So in Tulip, I very much the mixed success, really. Some worked and some didn't. And so this is my 4th attempt at this now. And this business, I've taken the learnings of all those things, really, and I'm trying to reflect the cultural stage where we are in Butchers, with the hearts and minds and the individual development phase, to really try to get people's hearts and brains engaged in the process.
Amazing.
And if you do that, my learning is certainly we stand a far better chance of leaders of embedding and sustaining anything we want to try and do.
That's a fantastic example of vision that actually, we can't just tell people what to do anymore. It's not about command and control and here's all the tools, off you go. The deal with your words there at the bottom, deal with the why before the what, is a fantastic lesson. Thank you.
Must always think people before results.
Yes.
And never sacrifice sustainability of performance for short-term speed, no matter what the temptations.
Great lesson. Thank you, Steve. Okay,
you.
the same question over to you, YJ.
Thanks, Amanda. So I love people's comments thus far, really around the people. And so mine is in a similar vein. And the motto that I always try to live by is be authentic. And I know it's a term that seems to be on vogue, but what I always say is that people can tell and people can sniff out when you're not being genuine. And I think once you lose the trust of your team, it's really, really hard to get it back. So I think when you think about being an authentic leader, it goes about understanding who you are. It's about the people on your team. And the most important thing is to get the right people in the right role. And as I mentioned previously, it's really, truly investing in their development. And then I think one of the final things about being authentic is really share your goals for the company or for yourself, for the team, and live them and truly live them, and be okay if you make mistakes, and share with your team when you make mistakes, because I think that really bodes that trust that you're trying to build. An example that Aduke mentioned is around show by example. And once you do that, I think you create ambassadors for the goal that you're trying to do, which I firmly believe is a multiplier effect. And that is the way that you are only able to achieve a goal, is having these ambassadors that are on the same side as you to deliver on what you're trying to achieve.
Thank you. Thanks, YJ. And then very similar to what Bob was saying with his Mumbai experience, actually hold the mirror up to yourself to understand where you are, and think about using that authenticity in the best way for the team that you've got available, that's there with you, I guess. Thank you. That's absolutely excellent. Thank you so much. Same question over to you, Bob. Who's this guy?
This guy's Lord Noon. We bought his business in 2005, and I'll touch on him at the end in terms of an example of the impact he had as a leader and the impact he had on me. From my perspective, it's really important that you're very clear on who you are as a leader, what are your values, and that you're consistent and believe in those values. And I take on board YJ's comment. For me, it's really important to be authentic, to be genuine, and to be sincere. And if you can build trust, you can really move things forward. You need to be constantly working on your leadership and your personal development. The world we operate is changing all the time, and if you don't, you'll go backwards as a leader. And I had the opportunity to work with Lord Noon, and we bought his ready meal business, and I had the privilege of running his business for 3 years. And Noon became a mentor, a friend, and in effect a second father figure to me. And unfortunately, he's no longer with us. But he always had time for people, whether it was somebody on the factory floor or whether it was a prime minister. He invested in others. And my lesson from that, if you invest in others, you'll always get the benefits back as a leader, underpinned by your values and your consistency.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you, Bob. And that just demonstrates also the importance of having a mentor there. You described him as a mentor who actually became a friend, and having a leadership mentor, somebody and some peers actually that you can speak to with complete trust, is a massive thing in terms of leadership. Thank you very much for sharing that. So our final question to our guests is, what would your advice be to leaders in the future? Things are moving very quickly. What would your advice be to manage those challenges? To Aduke, thank you.
Thank you, Amanda. I have three different advices. But the first one would be something my father always said when we were growing up is listening is very different from hearing. And I love that everyone's pretty much talked about the importance of people, and now it's all about people. But also it's actually listening and understanding what people are saying to you. Often the times, because leaders have a combined view of what's happening at the strategic level and also what we need to do at a more sort of transactional, operational level, you can find yourself, surrounded by people only telling you what you want to hear. But actually, it's creating that environment where you can really listen to the people around you, and even the people that are really sort of junior members of staff, or it doesn't matter what levels. Is being able to really understand what they're saying to you. Second lesson is forget having it all. I read this somewhere where around leaders can sometimes you can set yourself up for failure if you want to do it all. It's about prioritizing and understanding that you probably won't be able to deliver everything you want to deliver with the people you've got, but it's understanding what must be done and then prioritizing that, and that helps the messaging to the people that you lead as well, so they can focus without feeling overly overwhelmed. Obviously, there are times where you have to go above and beyond, but in terms of typically prioritize effectively, and lastly, be part of people's journeys. Let there be a level of relationship where people can go, oh, actually, I gained this from you. Thank you for doing this for me. Thank you for being that for me. Because as we've said in different shapes and forms, it's all about people. And people will remember how you make them feel more than what you do together. So yeah, so this is my sort of three nuggets.
Absolutely right. People remember how you make them feel rather than what you've done together. That point about listening, not just hearing, is critical as well. I mean, life's really busy, and as leaders, we've got so much on our plate. To be able to sit back and listen and make yourself the time to do that. Great advice. Thank you, Aduke. Steve, what would your advice be?
Whilst many things are going to be the same, almost certainly, there's going to be a huge amount of change in the world in the next number of years. We're seeing, certainly in the FMCG environment and in the world in general, increasingly breakdown of traditional ways of things happening that we've been used to for a long time. The whole rise of the online world, the kind of internet age, the social media environment is completely changing the dynamics of the world that we live in. Therefore, I think as leaders, we've really got to start to prepare ourselves for a much more chaotic world, a much more fast-moving world, a much more uncertain world in some ways. And therefore, I think what we've got to start to do as leaders increasingly and really prepare ourselves for is accept that what's been good for us in the past may not be the same as we go forward into tomorrow, and really learn and understand new worlds, new tools, new techniques, kind of to adapt to that world. I think it's hugely important as leaders that we are prepared to adapt ourselves and change ourselves and be up to date and being in tune with the latest dynamics of what's going on and don't get outdated. And then again, it comes back to people for me. I think the biggest thing we've got to take forward is we've got to accept in a world of change and chaos that our people are going to take time to learn, be patient, give them the opportunity to understand that world, and occasionally make some failures, learn from that and move forward. So it really, for me, is a preparation and understanding a much more fluid world that we need to adapt to as leaders.
Yeah, the leaders that are going to succeed into the future are the ones that are going to take that change and help people, as you say, to unravel that ball of wool and to really to motor on through it as quickly as possible, because the world moves on and your competitors will be there before you if not. Thanks, Steve, that's great. YJ.
Yes, so it's actually quite apropos that I follow Steve's comment, and I love this quote from Winston Churchill that success is not final, failure is not fatal, and it's the courage to continue that counts. And so, you know, my advice for people would be to take a bunch of different assignments to really help you be ready for the future. You know, take around things that you wouldn't expect to be the best assignments, like turnaround teams or teams that you know are toxic for that matter, or a variety of different assignments, both globally or in different functions. And if I go back to my first example about taking on this motley crew of people that no one wanted to manage, if it wasn't for that experience and truly the positive experience that I had with that team, I wouldn't be the type of manager and leader that I am now. So I would say just have the courage to try new things. You will always get something out of that whole experience. And you might be surprised that what you get out of it is not what you anticipated. And I think that's some of the surprises and truly the way that shapes you as a better leader going forward.
Thank you, IJ. That's excellent advice. Quite often, certainly in my career and with when I am hearing leaders talking, that they expect to be going on a certain path upwards, and actually those sideways moves and those do things that you've not done before and accept that that your path is going to change throughout the course of your career is fantastic advice. Thank you. Bob, your advice?
Yeah, I'd give two bits of advice to our listeners. I think there's the world, and Steve touched on it, we are working in an environment that is going through rapid structural change, certainly in the UK grocery industry. There's lots of factors affecting it. And as leaders, we have to understand that continuous change is the norm. And that was a sort of light bulb moment for me probably over the last couple of years. And as a result of that, it's how do we navigate through constant change? So the power of the internet, the external factors like Brexit, and fundamental changes in consumer behavior, how do we react to that? And as leaders, we have to be agile, flexible, open-minded, and the ability to deal with uncertainty all the time. And I think that's really, really important for leaders in the next 5 years. The second one I would put out there, which I've touched on in my previous two questions, the answer to the two questions that have been asked, is for me, it's really important, whether you're a student, whether you're a graduate, whether you're a middle manager or a senior leader, really start working on your self-development. If you want to be a good leader, you need to understand who you are. And once you know who you are, how can you become better? And off the back of that, you can bring people with you. So for myself, it's important to be open-minded, be agile, but really focus on who you are, understand your self-awareness, be able to articulate it, be able to develop yourself. And off the back of that, you will succeed in a very uncertain world.
Thank you, Bob. That's absolutely fantastic. It's this agility in change is going to become more and more and more critical for leaders, and those who don't change and adapt are not going to do too well, to be honest. Thank you so much, team. We're nearly out of time, so it just remains for me to say thank you so much for your answers. They've been truly humbling, your stories, and it's been a joy to listen to. So once again, I'd really like to thank, as we're going to finish now, I'd like to thank Aduke. Thank you, Aduke. Steve, thank you.
Thank you.
YJ, thank you for coming from a very cold Canada to join us, and such an early morning for you too. Thank you.
No worries. I appreciate the invitation to participate with such lovely and accomplished individuals. Thank you again.
Oh, thank you. And Bob, thank you again to you too.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great weekend.
A big thank you to you, our listeners, for coming onto the webinar. I know you don't often have a lot of time, and giving 30 minutes over your lunchtime is really appreciated. And as a thank you gift, if you did want to, if you email support@uspire.co.uk, we've just launched a new underlying beliefs assessment, and we'd be absolutely delighted to get your feedback on it, and absolutely delighted to send you a report about your balance as a leader, holding up the mirror, your balance of support and challenge. So thank you again, and we hope to see you on our next webinar. Thank you guys, and have a great rest of your day.